So, bro, welcome again. I said I'd have you back on Bro Talk.
You did. You took the plunge.
You took the plunge. But bro, I know a lot about you. We've been friends for many years now, and your role as a dad goes without question. I know less about your role as a son with your dad.
Hmm.
And when you've been a dad many years now, and you look back on your childhood with your dad, do you compare? Do you feel like you had a great relationship with your dad? Do you feel you missed out on parts? What's your view?
Um, it's a good question. I don't. I probably don't compare. Different era, different people. I would say my dad was a good dad. Um, and he was how to maybe I would describe it as a practical dad.
Okay.
In as much as I remember spending weekends, and it's funny, I don't remember a lot of my childhood, if I'm honest. I don't know whether that's a good thing. You can psychoanalyze me at some point, but please don't.
Lot of
Please
blockage
don't.
there.
He like my weekends I would often spend with him. He would weekends he was busy. He was a guy that was always on the go. But so he's probably doing stuff around the house, and I would probably shadow him and watch what he was doing. Or we'd go windsurfing together, or he'd take me fishing at the weekends. And I didn't really enjoy fishing. I enjoyed drinking chicken soup while I'm fishing and eating wagon wheels. And
Wagon
a
wheel was a classic.
decent sized wagon wheel back then as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Proper. Um, but it was, I guess there was that nice time to spend with him.
Yeah.
And so we did do a lot of those things together. I remember that at the weekends. He wasn't, I don't want to say he wasn't a loving dad, but he wasn't super affectionate. So I certainly when my kids are growing up, they don't let me so much anymore, but there was loads of hugs and kisses for my kids.
Yeah.
And that wasn't my dad at all.
Okay.
That kind of outward pouring of emotion.
Yeah.
I think the first time I really saw him show emotion was when I moved up to Stoke-on-Trent in my 20s, and he was a bit tearful and he told me he was going to miss me, and that was like, wow.
Wow.
And I will always hug him when I see him now,
Yeah.
but I initiated that as an adult. I started giving him a hug. That wasn't something that he would have initiated from with me in the first place. So it was a practical. I knew he loved me,
Yeah.
but I didn't tend to hear it from him. Uh,
Would your dad ever tell you that he loved you or that he was proud of you? Can you recall a moment where he says, Nick, I'm proud
I,
of you, I love you?
as a child, no. I think when I moved that time, he was emotional. He told me then when he said, "I'm going to miss you," he told me he loved me.
Yeah.
It's quite rare. I mean, yeah, I just got a birthday card from him, and he said to a very special son.
Yeah.
So, and that means a lot to me because that's not his normal his normal way. He certainly would struggle with that. His dad died when my dad was, I think, 15, 16.
Oh,
And I think
wow.
there's a
Young.
hardness in him that, and as a family, they were quite, trying to think of that word when you don't show your emotions very much. But that side of the family were quite kind of not cold, but typical British,
Yeah.
crack on, don't show too much emotion. So seeing that emotional side of him is quite rare, but then I guess it means a lot. But I know from other people will tell me, "Oh, your dad's so proud of you." So it's kind of a roundabout hearing it
Yeah.
from others.
So looking back, did it in any way affect your confidence? Because as a dad, you filled your children with love, and I'm not saying your dad didn't love you, but with words saying, "I love you, I'm proud of you." But you didn't get that as a child. So
Mm.
yeah, what was your confidence built upon if you didn't receive that from your dad?
Well, I don't know that I had a lot of confidence as a child. Ironically, I was quite insecure as a child. So, um, and I don't want to sit here and blame my parents for my insecurities. But the reality is, a lot of our confidence or lack of it can obviously come going to come from the inputs that we're receiving.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I was insecure because I knew I was intelligent. Um, I knew I could do well at things, but actually the message from my parents was you could do better.
Right.
So in a way, they believed in me more than I believed in myself, and they were frustrated because I was probably just doing enough to get by. I was Mr. Average at school, um, well, at high school anyway.
Mhm.
I was in that space where yeah, I was the grey man in the middle.
Yeah.
So and they would always come back from parents' evening. Oh, you could do better. You know you're average. You could do better. we know you could do so much better. And that was always the message. And there was probably a bit of tough love in there from my dad. And I'm all right with that because I like tough love.
Yeah.
And I always remember, bro, to this day, when I was in my year, I was resitting my A levels because I hadn't done as well as I should have done. Could have done better. And and I went round to my parents had split up. I went round to see my dad. We didn't have the best of relationships. And I went round to see him, and I needed some money for tuition because I was resitting my A levels.
Mhm.
And he just looked at me. He said, "When are you going to get a job?" And it was like a bit of a one of those moments.
Yeah.
But I left it. I was in his office in Croydon. I left his office. I walked round to the bodybuilding shop that I love to hang out in, and the gym that was attached to it in Croydon, and I got myself a job there and then. So it was a little bit of like, okay, tough love worked because I was
Yeah.
like, right, up to you. Now you put the heat on me, and that's me. I respond to the heat being put on me.
Yeah.
So had he just been like, "Oh, I'm sure you'll get a job when it's right," and I
Yeah.
believe son, I'd be like, "Oh, cool, I'll take it easy." So, but yeah, I think confidence for me is my confidence has come from within and from being as an adult rather than necessarily. I don't think I grew up as a confident child.
How did
But
that fare with your sister? Sorry.
well, that was exactly what I was about to say. That the irony being, and therefore you can't say what must have been your parents. My sister grew up super confident, head girl at school. So where'd you get that from? Like it was so weird. And I'll talk to her about her childhood, and she doesn't remember the same things as me. So there is a wiring thing that I
Yeah.
certain things I didn't receive certain things, and she saw it completely differently. So yeah, I don't know where she got her confidence from, and I didn't get mine from when we were brought up by the exact same parents.
Yeah, it's funny how we can grow up, as you said, grow up in the same household and complete different memories and the
Yeah,
causal experiences. And it's the same with couples.
yeah,
They share the same experience, completely
yeah,
different. That's
exactly.
a conversation for another time, different topic.
100%, 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We've been part of men's groups, and one of the key areas we talk about is the fact that men, young boys, sons, need that affirmation from their dad. We want
Mm,
to aspire to the dad should be the first hero. I want to be like my dad. I want to go work for
mm,
my dad. I want to be with him. And if that is missing or absent, then we still need it. We go looking for it elsewhere. But that
yeah.
affirmation can never really fulfill that we need from a dad.
Mm. No, I think you're right. I think there's nothing better than hearing it from your own dad. If you don't, then you don't. But I guess there's always that kind of gap, and you could know it, but I think it's nice to hear it.
And this is no disrespect to mothers. We have different needs from a mother.
Mm,
But
mm.
if we, generally when mum says, "Oh, you've done well," or "You look good," and we say, "You're my mum," you're going to say that, even though
Exactly.
they haven't done
Yeah.
as well.
Well, actually, I'm not sure my mum does say that, but but you're right. There is a big difference.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like my wife will say, "Oh, oh, you look like you've lost weight, or you're looking great." I'm like, "Oh, you're going to say that, aren't you? You always say that."
yeah.
So, and it's a similar thing. It's yeah, it just means something more, doesn't it? Coming from the dad. I don't know why.
Is it the stamp of approval? Because you think about traditionally, I know it's modern day now. A lot of people take on wives, either keep their name when they're married or a double barrel name. But traditionally, you'll take on the father's name,
Hmm.
and the father's name would be the stamp of approval. This is my child. And if there's any doubt about that child, you wouldn't take on the father's name. So is it that stamp of approval that we're all seeking, whether you're a son or a daughter, the stamp of approval from your dad?
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were saying that because I'm stood here we're talking as sons and men, and I wonder whether it is as important to a daughter. I don't know. I don't know whether my daughter needs to hear. I'm pretty certain she does need to hear those words from me just as much as my son does. Um, yeah, it's one I haven't thought about is where that importance has come from, and why should it mean why I guess it's that maternal paternal thing, and as you say, mums are more likely just to like they have that in them. They're going to encourage you. Not all of them do, but some,
Yeah.
they are more encouraging. They're more uplifting. Um, is it just there's something in a man that is just makes it's harder for us to give our approval. Therefore, if you get it, it means more, so to speak. I mean, it shouldn't mean more, but maybe it's something in there that, oh wow, dad said it, therefore, yeah, it must be real.
Yeah, as you're aware, I've got three daughters, and I've said previously whereby they need both of our approvals, but I would say they seek mine more. Like, they'll say, but what does dad think? And my
Mm,
eldest will say, well, tell me what dad thinks, or does dad agree? And it's
mm,
like, if dad agrees, okay, I'm filled with confidence now. If dad is wavering or hesitant, they
mm,
don't feel as confident to do whatever
mm.
they want to do or whatever decision they're making. So there is something about the final, yeah, I'll use that phrase again, stamp of approval. Dad says yes. And it'd
Yeah,
be like go and ask your father. If your father says yes, it's okay, all clear.
yeah,
But okay, mama said yes, but what's dad going to say?
yeah. It's true. It's true. But it throws up so many questions as we say that, doesn't it? Because it's like, why is that? And is that us thinking that we're more important than the mum? Which some people are going to listen to this and think, oh right, so you've got the final say, you've got the stamp of approval, have you? And I don't think it is that, but it's something in the child that feels that way. It's not. I don't think we're putting that on them necessarily. So I don't know where that comes from, other than traditionally that's how it's been.
Well, the word, going a bit deeper now, bro, the word father means source. And so all of us, obviously the seed goes into the womb, but the source is the father.
Yeah,
And therefore the father is ultimately responsible for the protection, the provision of that child. And that's probably one of a key reason why we've got so many issues today, because we've got many children and less fathers actually
yes,
active
yeah,
presence
yeah,
in people's lives. So
absolutely.
if the source is gone and you're left there and you're like, okay, if my source can leave me, then how can I trust that anybody else won't leave me?
Mm,
I'm on my own. I've got to do this myself. So
yeah.
therefore, we go there out as boys and as men. We don't ask for help. We crash a lot because nobody's taught us how to drive, metaphorically
Mm.
speaking. Because yeah, if you remove the source, the foundation's gone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But it's an interesting topic in this day and age when equality and everything else is so talked about. It's I sat here and totally get that that's what the word means. But I wonder how many other people might hear that and be like, oh, that's sexist. That's an old-fashioned view. And I'm not saying I think that. I'm just throwing out some thoughts as we talk about this. That we're on a bro talk podcast. We're going to talk as bros, right?
Yeah,
Um, but isn't that interesting? And I agree with you. Society is failing, and a big reason is the lack of dads being dads. You're not a dad by making a baby. You're a dad by being present and being a dad.
yeah,
And I forget what the phrase is. Anyone can have a child, but not everyone can be a father, or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It takes a real man to be a father, and that's lacking. And I think it's obvious to look around society and see that lack.
Yeah, bro, I'm going to throw something controversial. I know you've experienced this. The guys, when people split up, and in my experience, professionally and personally, the guys that do show an active interest in the child and do want to be there often get a harder time from the mother. And the guys who are showing very little interest, the woman, the mother, is making it easy for them to see the child.
Mm,
And I see so many men in tears, frustrated, being taken to court, and they're like, I want to be part of my child's life. I cannot
100%,
be. We've got to remember the other side of Father's Day, the guys that have not got access to their children, when
yeah.
Father's Day is a reminder of pain, anger, bitterness. And this is not again blaming women, but it's just presenting reality. What goes on
Mm,
if that woman's
mm,
hurt by the dad?
mm,
It is a weapon.
mm.
And we say, oh, I'd never use your children against you. But when there's pain, when
Until we
there's
split
hurt,
up, yeah,
anger, it's like, right, I'm going to get you. I'm going to make you
yeah,
feel.
yeah. It's unfortunate that that's still a point of power and a point of leverage,
Yeah,
and the point of weakness is children in a breakup.
yeah,
Um, and you're right. I felt it firsthand. I've seen it in so many other people. Is that, well, why is it? It seems so unfair that the more active a dad wants to be, the more involved a dad wants to be. It's not in every case. The harder it is for them to be. I don't know whether that's an insecurity on the woman's behalf, because we're speculating as two blokes once again. And I've never been able to have a conversation with the other side in those situations.
Yeah.
Because I guess if I was looking at it from that perspective, because it probably is quite when a couple split up, there's probably a great fear on both sides. There's a fear of what's life going to look like. Will my children still want to be with me? Blah blah blah. And traditionally in the UK, the children are going to go and live with mum in a normal world. And there's
Yeah.
many cases where that's not happening, but that is almost the expected, unfortunately. And then I think how it must be for that woman, that mum, to think, but what if my kids choose to go and live with dad? He's a great dad. They love him. Then I'll have nothing. And maybe there's something in there that causes them to react the way they do. I don't know. Is it just because the man cheated or did something and therefore the woman's bitter? I don't think
Yeah.
so, because that's not always the case. Is there an insecurity that says, actually, if I make it difficult for them to see their dad, he'll give up and they'll want to be with me?
Yet not fully acknowledging the pain the children are going through, and later on looking back thinking, well, where was dad? Oh, dad wasn't around because if they tell the truth, I prevented it or I
Yeah.
made it very difficult for him.
Yeah. I always wonder, bro. I always wonder how that plays out, because there's an age a child gets to when they can have a conversation with their dad if he's still accessible and they haven't been turned against him in that environment. And there's probably always a trail of evidence that says I tried. And I don't know many situations like that. I know of one, and I'm not going to say too much on here about it, but
Yeah.
for me, when that child gets to a certain age, they're going to go straight to dad, because they know the reality.
Yeah.
And it's not dad that's not trying, it's mum that's blocking.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it, because these mums must know what they're doing to their children.
And I mean, this has really touched me, bro. Because like you, I know people in this situation, this very day and previously. And is it if the mums, and like I said, once again, for this is not an attack on mums, it's about the situation. If they put on the hat of daughter and thinking, right, if this was my dad, would I want a relationship? Would it be a different reaction, response? Or if they've had a poor relationship with their dad and they think this is what dads do and this dad's left, then so be it.
Hmm. I'm sure and there's so many factors that come into play in how we react in a situation, isn't there? Um, and certainly anyone's relationship with their parents is a massive contributing factor to how we respond in situations. I don't know. Yeah, it's always been that something I'd love to do, is just to be able to talk to some of the women that are doing this.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, I know of one situation where it's reversed, and the dad is doing this to the mum.
Yeah.
But you don't hear about that very often. And maybe that's because we're guys and we tend to come across the guys that are being hurt. But yeah, I would love to have that discussion to say why. What is it about this situation that makes you think this is the right thing to do? Because you put yourself in your child's shoes, you'll know they should have the relationship with their dad. Unless, as you say, maybe their relationship with their dad was so non-existent, they're like, it won't make any difference.
Yeah.
Or I sometimes I think the reality is that the guy maybe hasn't stepped up while in the relationship, and there no doubt is a bitterness when the relationship ends. And I read a lot of posts where blokes are saying she's ended it, she's kicked me out, I don't get it, I don't understand, I've not done anything wrong. And you think
I've not done anything wrong.
yeah, exactly. But I think in that space is probably maybe they haven't been pulling their weight in that, because you can be very complacent,
Yeah.
and then suddenly it's like, oh right, so we're splitting up, right, I need to make more effort to see my kids than I was doing before. Again, this is a generalization, but this can go on. And so but it's almost too late because you haven't shown that interest as being a dad. So the mum's attitude is, well, you probably don't care. You barely spend any time with the kids anyway. And suddenly they care because being around, being in the same home as a child and not seeing them at all is two very, very different places.
And you're correct, bro. You're presented the other side, and a lot of mothers do complain about the lack of support when they're in a relationship from the dad, and even to the degree that the dad won't change a nappy, or the dad, I'm sorry, it doesn't engage, or I do, and they just a lot of them feel like they're single parents.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
was having a chat. I had some work drinks this week, and we were chatting and one of the women was saying, because we were talking about, the guy goes away for a week and leaves mum and children at home.
yeah,
It's kind of fine. If it's the other way around, the women feel this need to like write full instructions for everything that's going to go on. PE kit this day, this day, this day, this day. Please do the washing. Don't let the laundry overfill.
yeah.
And I said, so he will do it if you ask him to. Like, yeah, I shouldn't have to ask him to. And it's that feeling that they can't trust the man to run the house, run the family in their absence. And there's two sides to that,
Yeah.
because I was trying to explain, well, men don't see the same things that women see. So we don't see the overfilled laundry basket. And if you've been doing the PE kit every week, how do we know what day the PE kit's supposed to be packed? Yeah, there's a reality that we end up in roles, and then we're frustrated when the other person doesn't know our role without
Yes.
us without being told. They're
Yeah.
happy to do it, but that just comes down to communication in relationships, doesn't it? It's
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember when the girls were young, and if I had the girls even one night, and people would say, "Women, oh, you're babysitting."
exactly,
And
yeah.
it's like
I know.
babysitting my
But they
children.
get paid.
Are you babysitting tonight?
Yeah,
It's like
totally. I've worked with guys that came in and said, "Oh yeah, I was babysitting for the weekend," and they're all like braggadocious. Check me out. What do you mean you're at home with your own kids? Well done.
yeah.
Revelation. So yeah, I mean it cuts both ways, doesn't it? There are so many stereotypes and things said to both sides in that I think we're all to blame for where we end up, and then it's just working out what works for anyone in that space.
And underneath it, and this will probably lead to a conversation another day, is fear. I mean, I don't know about you, bro. Nobody really taught me how to be a dad. I had people I
Mm.
looked up to, people I
Mm.
watched consciously and subconsciously. But it's the most fearful thing when that little person comes into the
Mm.
world. You
Mm.
take over, there you go. And it's like,
Totally.
I'm a dad.
Yeah.
You've got the emotion, the joy of that. But the reality comes in, I'm a dad.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for you.
100%. It's, I mean, as for me, it was slightly different because I became a dad, to not to my biological child, but to an adopted son. When he was 7 and I was in my 20s still, I became a dad, and I didn't even get a chance to grow into it. It was like, boom, here you are. Now
Yeah.
be dad. And I messed that one up royally because I didn't have a Scooby Doo what I was doing. So yeah, 100%. At least you kind of, hopefully, as mum and dad, you grow together in learning, and you get a lot of things wrong over the years, don't you? And we can look back now and said, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. And my kid's like, you traumatized me, Dad. Why did you do that to me? You
Yeah, all
made
my
me eat all
children in
my
cancer.
food. And it's kind of like, yeah, okay, well, I might have been a bit strict on that, or I was just doing this because, it's some of it's letting time play out to prove why we did it. And
Yeah.
some of it's just because we got it completely wrong because we were doing things that our parents did for us, or things that are the opposite of what our parents did to us because we hated it so much as children that we were like, I'll never do that to my kids. So we go the other way
Yeah.
rather than kind of finding the model that works for us. We react again to everything that's ever happened to us, and it creates this melting pot of this is how I'm going to do dadding in the first case, and then we're going to see where it ends up, and hopefully our children survive. But yeah, no one teaches it. I mean, there are courses, I'm sure, parenting courses, and I did read a few books when I was growing up, or when my children were growing up, like how to dad better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's about you, isn't it? If it fits you, and you're probably going to be a hell of a lot better dad than you would have been if you didn't go to work on your own self.
If we conducted a survey, let's say just in the UK, of regards to what do you need from a dad? What's the most important aspect of a dad having a dad? What do you think will come back as the most popular response?
Um, hmm. Well, I think it would kind of loop into roughly what we were talking about: confidence, validation, um, being told that you're okay as you are, acceptance, self-acceptance.
Yeah.
So being given the gift of self-acceptance
Mhm.
and a self-confidence that says, I am who I am, and no one can take that away from me. In this day and age, I think that's a massive gift. And if your dad gives that to you, then you're not going to go looking for it from another man.
Yeah.
And, when we look at our daughters, what greater gift could we give our daughters than giving them so much validation that they don't go and look for it from another man? And
Absolutely agree with you 100%. And I remember when I interviewed Jeff Shreezer a couple of years ago, and he was speaking about his dad, and he said the role of a dad is to encourage. So
mm,
that's the one job of a dad, to encourage. And I thought, wow. And then I read the Bible, and it says, fathers, do not discourage your children.
mm,
So it just confirmed that our role is not to discourage, but the
yeah,
opposite, to
yeah,
encourage. And
yeah,
the ultimate encouragement is validation, acceptance.
yeah,
And I would say next to that, on a practical level, as dads, which is the problem we're experiencing today in many parts of the world, but the two words would be there.
mm,
So your
100%.
children know, no matter where you are in the world, if they need dad, he's going to be there, whether it's over the phone, whether it's getting a plane to them or the coach, whatever, it's
Yeah,
be there. And so
yeah,
many of us are lost out there because we haven't had that validation and our
yeah,
dads are not there.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's now we're in a vicious cycle, aren't we, bro? Because we're raising young men that are not experiencing dads the way we think they should, and they're going to become dads. There's no test required, there's no exam needed or anything to become a dad, is there?
Yeah.
It's a quick act for many.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Very quick to sum.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So in that space, it's like you can become a dad like that. I mean, you can't drive a car or do so many other things
Yeah.
without proving your competence. You can become a dad with no competence,
Yeah.
no matter what your past, no matter the programming in your brain. You can just become a dad.
Yeah.
And so now we've got dads that haven't been raised by dads, becoming dads. And I think it just each generation is possibly going to get worse if something doesn't happen. Because where are the young men of today that are going to become dads? Where are they learning how to do this well?
Yeah.
And you can't you can go on, oh well, my dad did this and I don't want to do that. That's great. That's not telling you what to do. It's telling you what not to do. And those two things are very different as well. We need positive direction.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a serious problem, bro, and it's generational. And you can't see a quick fix unless there is, I'd say, there needs to be education,
Mm-hmm.
education in schools
Mm-hmm.
about, as you said, roles, responsibilities, because it starts as a son and a daughter. Then that's our first title, and it remains with us throughout life. And I can tell almost immediately the people who've had solid foundation. Doesn't mean they've been free from any crisis or trauma, but they've had the support and stability of their parents,
Yeah.
and of both, not just the
Yeah.
dads, both.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just they enter into the world a different person, more
Yeah.
confident because of that security at home. But when going back, when we don't have that security at home, it's going to affect us.
Of course it
And
is.
we didn't
Yeah.
go out there hoping someone else can feel that, and then we blame them, then that doesn't happen. And the number of weddings now, speaking traditionally, where normally the father would give away his daughter, and the
Mm.
dad's not there because there's no
No,
relationship. So someone
no
else steps
relationship.
in,
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
brother would do it, or a friend
Yeah.
would do it because, and you're thinking, my dad should be doing this.
Yeah.
My dad should be the one
Exactly.
walking me down this aisle.
Yeah. It's a very sad time. And I think the other thing, going back to what people need from a dad, is that modeling of how a man should be in this day and age in society. So me as a dad, I want to hope that I'm showing my son how to be a man. And I think that's another topic for us and another bro
Yeah.
talk is
Yeah.
what the young men need to survive in today's society, because it's not
Yeah.
what we needed when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And hope my daughter sees what it looks like to be around a good man, so that she's got a yardstick to measure against other men. And hopefully then if she's around younger men and they're not measuring up, she's like, oh, hang on a minute. No, that's not quite right.
It's a lot of work. However, there are a lot of good men out there, great men who are showing up
Yeah,
as dads, whether
100%.
they're the biological fathers or non-biological dads who are aware and just be good role models
Mm.
in so many different areas. And even in prison, I've worked in prisons and I'm seeing guys who've made mistakes, they're paying for it, but they're still showing up in mentorship roles to other young men and say,
Yeah.
oh, similar aged men, because that doesn't get publicized. We just need
Mm.
more of it. But
Mm.
this will be such a different society, country, nation if we addressed the dad issue.
Yeah.
And if we just, that love, that acceptance, that, what's the other word? Humility,
Mm.
being humble,
Mm.
and to say, I need you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big gap, and you said, oh, there needs to be more teachings, maybe in schools.
Yeah.
But of course, the problem we've got is that you take a 16-year-old man, boy in school, and you say, oh, we're going to do a class on how to be a man, how to be a dad. They're not showing up. You're kind of, well, they might, but what you probably need is a more practical mentoring facility so that they
Yeah.
can watch us in action and not be taught. I remember there was I don't know if you saw, there was a Channel 4, I think it was Channel 4, where Danny Dyer was exploring what it means to be a man.
Okay.
And he went into a school and he was chatting about what it is to be a man in today's society, toxic masculinity, all of these topics.
Yeah.
Um, but I couldn't help looking at the people he was talking to and thinking, this isn't a cross section of young men today. It felt like they'd taken some of the better students out of the school and not really.
Okay.
Whereas what you want to be doing is engaging the whole lot and
Yeah.
saying, look, and I don't know what that answer is. I just 100% agree with you that there has to be something. I mean, I look at the work I've done on myself recently with a coach, which is all about, I mean, he's called the Modern Man Coach, and it's all about how to be a man. And you think this is what everyone needs.
Yeah.
If you can give it to them in their 20s, it's going to change the world. If you get to them in their 50s, it's good,
Mm.
but it's at the 20s that you're going to make a massive impact,
Mm.
because then we might change the next generation.
Yeah. Yes, because those 20s will go on, a lot of them, and father children.
They'll father children,
Yeah.
they'll mentor other young men as they're
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Much work, but thank you again, bro, for the person you are, first of all, the son
Thank
you
you.
are, and the dad you are, and the husband you are. And I want to say a well done to you, not as your dad, but as a fellow bro. And I want to say a well done to all the dads out there.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, bro.
Cheers.